Hey folks, how you doing out there? Welcome to another Drinking and Wink series. Okay, this is a little preview of something I'm going to work up. I'm going to put a bookends. Unless one more comes up, I might get into, but it's going to connect uh, with our. I can't even say anymore. Scores timber. I'm going to lose that scores timber next September, and I'll be too old to pronounce it next September. September 28th, my birthday next year. Anyway, we were talking about Scores Timbers blended Scotch-A-Rama. We might bring one more to you here, but what I'm going to do now is talk to you a little bit about this little feature series I'm going to put together here. Yesterday was my birthday. Thanks to all that gave me some nice birthday wishes. Had a little gathering, talking whiskey, talking music. It was just a great hang. I have the best friends in the world, and I have my family is great. My friends are great, and even though sometimes you can kind of get down about what's going around the world around us, yeah, it was just a great hang. But we were talking a little bit about whiskeys, and most of the people that we were talking kind of know what was going on. But we started getting on the point of peated whiskey, right? And I'm starting to realize that in terms of peated Scotch whiskey, whether it be single malt, malted blends, or blended Scotch, there's still some kind of confusion as to what's going on, or what I'm supposed to expect, or how do I know what am I drinking when we talk about peated or whiskey that is produced with a peat influence. Okay, for some of you, you're going to know all about this, but I'm starting to, as I'm talking to people, I'm starting to realize that. And well, let me put it this way: I'm starting to realize that my teaching element or teaching side of all this is kind of, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy telling people that don't know about it, just give them more information, and I want to get away from the multitude of YouTube channels, Facebook groups, where people are kind of coming on, putting a bunch of personality about what they're going to talk about their whiskeys, and kind of give this kind of, I don't know, like thumbs up or thumbs down stuff on whiskey. And that's not, I mean, there are tons of videos like that. A lot of times they drink the whiskey, they don't really get any information of what they're, I'm generalizing. There's some great ones out there too. There are a lot of people that maybe don't get any information of what they're drinking a whole lot. They make some guesses. They don't really know what's going on. They just tell you if they like it or if they don't. And I find a lot of times that is really kind of rating against whatever their favorite is. Okay, seeing this more in the American whiskey world. I'm sorry, American bourbon world. But we're going to talk about first about peated whiskey. The heart of soul of peated whiskey is going to be Scotland. Uh, they have the majority of the peated whiskey out there. There are a few peated Irish whiskeys. There are a few peated Japanese whiskeys. There are some peated American single malt whiskeys. I have one. I'm going to bring that to you soon. The whole point of this is just kind of show you a little bit more of the information that you might want should you start getting into other forays in terms of spirits. Okay, so single malt Scotch whiskey. Let's talk about peated stuff. The other thing is I don't like to use names and gifts out here, but I did receive this wonderful bottle yesterday from my good friend. I already said that we have a lot of great musician friends here. You know, I will put up the, just in terms of both people, I'm not buttering up and, trying to get them to hire me for stuff, but I will put the whole bank of the wonderful Chicago jazz and jazz adjacent guitarists in Chicago against anyone. I know Boston has a ton. I know New York has a bunch. I will say, I'm not going to say they're the best. I'll put them against anyone. Anyway, we were having a conversation, and we were just kind of talking about whiskey, and the person that gave this to me, okay, it's funny, it's called Cnoc Moine, and his initials are NA, and it's not for non-alcoholic. Anyway, we were talking about whiskeys. He was trying to learn more, so I'm kind of dedicating this series to teaching all of you a little bit more of why I like peated whiskey so much, and why, if you don't think you do, maybe you've had the wrong one, or maybe you had one that was just out of your range in terms of playing. It's like, peated whiskey is kind of like trying to play a song in jazz. you might be able to blow over, all of me or something like that. Maybe stablemates isn't ready for you right away. All right, so that's one of my relations. So there are all kinds of different influences. Before I talk about this whiskey, okay, which is a heavily peated whiskey, let me explain a little bit more about how peat works. Okay, when we're making malted, or we were making whiskey with malted barley. Okay, single malt Scotch whiskey is made with malted barley. What does that even mean? Okay, I'm going to use some examples here. Okay, let's pretend these grits. I don't think this is going to pour through the screen, but I'm going to pretend that these grits here are is ground up barley. Okay, sorry, 1 second. Middle of drinking a wink, Michelle. I'm sorry. Okay. New feature. Pete-tober. Pete-tober. She asked why I'm carrying a can. Well, watch and learn. Literally. So when we have the first process is grinding up barley. Okay, it's not malted yet. They take that barley, they wet it with hot water, and it begins to sprout. Just begins to sprout. Okay, that's the first process. Now, when you're going to malt barley, okay, it gets to sprout, and then you take the malted barley, the unmalted barley, the sprouting barley, and you pour it onto a malting floor. Now, I do not have a malting floor. I have a strainer, but it's basically the same concept. The malting floor is kind of like a screen, not a screen, more of a grate or a floor with perforations that air can come up underneath, or up from beneath the floor. Okay. So one floor, this is the basement. Okay, so they do that. They will spread it out and kind of move it around this floor. And like I said, this is wet, just starting to sprout barley. And now what they're going to do in the malting process is stop that sprouting. Okay, because if it goes to sprout too much, well, then it's not going to work for them. Okay, so what they're basically going to do is stop that sprouting, grind it up again, and then we're going to get, or they're going to grind it up, and then that's the malting process. That brings out the sweet flavors and the nuttier flavors out of just regular barley. So here we go. We have our barley. We spread it on the floor. They have wetted. They have started to sprout. And now I have to stop this because it's wet. Okay. So there's a couple ways you can do that. All right. You could do it with just fire from underneath. Okay. Fire dries it out. There you go. You've malted your barley and it has stopped sprouting. You could do it with, more companies do with just electric heat, okay, underneath, okay? You understand what electric heat is. You could do it with fire. There's another way, and this is where it comes in. What they do is they take bricks of peat, which is just kind of an organic, kind of soil-esque thing that is just a bunch of decomposing plant matter that kind of binds together, and there are banks and banks of this stuff out there everywhere. It is harvested, and then they put it into bricks, actually about the size of this box, okay? And it's harvested, squared off. So if they take those peat bricks and they put it up in an oven underneath this floor, they light it on fire, and that is what is giving this malted barley a peated nature, or more smoky, more green, more oceanic, more, I mean, imagine, peat moss or peat near the sea and oceans in Scotland. It's going to have a certain aquatic, green, briny flavor. And that's what all it is. They are not taking dirt and throwing it into their whiskey, okay? That's how you peat malted barley, okay? Or that's how you, yeah. Sorry, I got distracted. You see what the grits are for now? Oh, you want that? Okay. So that's how we get peat influence into the malted barley. Then it's produced and made like all other whiskeys, and there you go. It's going to have this flavoring. The amount that you do that, okay, you dry that barley out with peated fire, let's say. It's just like smoking something. If you smoke something, it's going to get hickory, flavors are going to be imparted into the meat. This is the same thing. How much you do and how much of a blend that you use of that determines in how peaty flavor that is, okay? And that's going to be measured in phenols per million. Okay, you will get numbers and tell you how much the phenols are. Okay, and different whiskeys advertise, the levels. Some of them tell you what that level of peating is. They can do that two ways. They can take a whole batch of barley as they're malting it and peat the whole thing, or they could maybe take some malted barley that was just done with a regular heat source, and then a small portion of the barley that they put together can be peated, giving you, that's how they control that a little bit. All right. So this is just a peat preview. That's where I'm going to end the peat right now. Okay, in there. But that's what we're talking about when we talk about peated whiskey. Now, a lot of most Scottish whiskey is, or most Scotch whiskey that is peated comes from the island of Islay. It's not Islay, it's not Islay, Islay. Islay. Okay, I lost count of how many distilleries are on there, but we're talking many of the brand names that you've heard of: Laphroaig, Ardbeg, Lagavulin, Bowmore, Kilchoman. I've already left off a couple that need to be there. Kalila, okay, Lagavulin. Help me out. I can't remember any other ones, and I should be remembering more. But that is this island, kind of eastern, middle, and south compared to the mainland of Scotland. Okay, that's where most of them are made. Okay, here you go. I'll give you an example. Here's this great T-shirt, heavily peated whiskey. I don't like the bottom part. And there you go. That is the island of, nope, not Islay. This shirt, I bought this shirt, and now that I'm past my birthday and birthday party and eating all kinds of cake and stuff, I'm committing to excellence. Someday it may fit into this shirt and not look like you just put a shirt on a brick of of peat moss, lumpy a little bit. But this shirt actually is funny because heavily peated whiskey. Then it says this stupid stuff about like bourbon for men. No, because Michelle would drink peated whiskey, and you yeah. Okay, I don't like that part. And then they actually put the Isle of Mull here, and not the Isle of not Islay. Okay, interesting. Okay, anyway, that's Islay. There is a distillery on the Isle of Mull that does some peated whiskey. That is Laphroaig. Okay, we have a couple of them on the Isle of Skye. Okay, one was an older one called Talisker, and the other one is this one right here called Torabhaig. Torabhaig. Who knows? I've heard a couple of different pronunciations. This is Gaelic, and it's kind of a combo word, meaning is basically the hill by the bay. It's Torah with just a little bit of ch, and then vague on the end, or veg. Torabhaig. Okay, there you go. They're a newer distillery. I think they first started distilling in 2017, and they also do a very peated kind of variety in their bottlings. Some companies just put out a peated whiskey, and that's it. The other one that's on Islay that I forgot is Bunnahabhain, who's the one Islay distillery that doesn't do a lot of peating except for some special offerings that they have in bottlings. Some other this is not to say that there's no peat in anything that you find in the mainland. And there are Speyside distilleries that sometimes add a little peat. Balvenie is one that does all non-peated except for some special additions. Peat Week, we'll get to that. Highland Park has a little bit of it. And then we sometimes get it in all other manners. Blended Scotch whiskies, like the Compass box that I'm talking about, will use a peated whiskey and an unpeated whiskey. So there you go. Last thing to note about that is know and kind of try to find out that, well, two things. One, if you're buying standards blended Scotch, like your Dewars, like your Johnny Walker Black Label, Double Black, and even up and up and up, note that those all have some peated whiskey in there. Okay, so you've already tasted it. If that's where you first experienced peated whiskey, that's why you might not like it. Also, some companies want to make a very elegant kind of presentation, and the peat will be somewhere in the 55% ppl or point. I'm sorry, ppm, phenols per million area. Some will also add some sherry cask whiskey that wasn't peated, or sherry cask aged whiskey to kind of I don't want to say smooth it out, but just kind of give it a little more refining. Then, especially with some of the kind of fun, kind of challenge whiskey concepts that are happening, then some of the Scotch whiskey companies were starting to put out very young whiskey that really is just on fire. Okay, a couple other companies of note. Compass Box puts out a bunch of whiskeys that are, again, I've talked about them. Some have no peat, some are heavily peated, and finally, the Bruichladdich company puts out a product called Octomore that comes out with different editions each year, and they are into the 200 level ppm. Let's talk about this whiskey, and then let's wrap it up. I'm going to do some more on this throughout time, talk a little bit more about peat, maybe do a little more research and find some more images and actually do it, not a live video, but another video, a pre-recorded video. So what are we looking at here? This is the Torabhaig Scotch whiskey. This is 46 by ABV. What's really fun about this is there's a lot of verbiage on this box, but all of it is kind of informative. Okay, this is essentially Hill by the Bay, and then this is the third in their Legacy series called Cnoc. That's Cnoc, I think is how it's pronounced. Cnoc is a hill, and then what essentially is saying hill of peat. Okay, peat, hill of peat. So this is going to probably be a pretty smoky bottle. I have not opened it just for that reason yet. Yes, this is going to be a neck pour, but I'm very interested about this. All natural on this, no color. So there is no age statement on this one, but we can see if it is no color added, there's got to be some kind of age on this, a good amount of age. This is aged in American Oak Oloroso, Pedro Jimenez, and ex-bourbon casks. Okay, so that is ex-American Oak, so it's new oak. Okay, they are Oloroso, which is a sherry cask. Pedro Jimenez, which is another sherry cask. I'm not going to get too much into that, but there are differences in flavors in those two. And then ex-bourbon casks. Let's see. Anything else I can tell you about it? I don't know. I'm going to open it up. Really fascinating company. Okay. And like I said, they are leaning into the peat real hard. I always like to get all this stuff off before I start pouring, because then it gets wet and you can kind of create a little bit of a thing there. All right, here we go. Oh, my shirt's falling over. It's all right. So yeah, the Isle of Mull, which was in this picture, they are home to the Tobermory distillery, which also makes Lechaig, which we will talk about in this series. Whoa. That is some earthy stuff. I'm going to like this. I can tell already. So again, just opening this up now. It's always a little unfair to do that, but I'm not rating this because I know I'm going to like it. I'm just telling you information. So now I got a peated whiskey. A little tip: 46%. I am more inclined to add a drop of water with a peated whiskey than a non. Sometimes I can change things around a little bit, and it just creates some different interest. There you go. You can see it's a beautiful color. On the nose, I'm getting a lot of barbecue and jerky scent, smoked meats, but also dry, almost like a dry rub kind of scent on that, which is amazing. Not a ton of the oceanic stuff, although a little bit more is there. This is a really curious nose. That's what I would say. It's like a dry rub. So we're thinking barbecue notes, campfire notes, not so much burning seaweed. Okay, although it's it's the seaweed, and you can tell this was peated and aged in somewhere pretty unique. And go in. Actually, I'm going to give it a little bit more of a little bit of a glass coating. The other thing to do with peated whiskey, which is fun, is just pour a drop in your hand and then rub your hands together. Mmm. Tobacco ash. It's a very unique nose and hand. That is some rich peat. Ooh, that is delicious. You see, my eyes are watering a little bit. I wasn't expecting the alcohol content or alcohol level to hit me so much. It really did. So this is what was so unique. We're gonna talk about peat in a couple of different ways. We're gonna be talking about the saline, briny seaweed, almost like maybe the olive oil that sardines are in. Okay, in the can, that kind of nose. And then we're going to talk about that's one part of peated style. Then the middle is kind of iodine and medicinal smell, which I'm not getting very much of it at all on this. Okay, Band-Aids, that kind of whatever that chemical compound that does that. And then we're going to talk about like more like a barbecue. Okay, and just campfire kind of smells. This is very unique. So this one was this is one of the higher. This started at 78.4 ppm, so that's more than Laphroaig. It's more than Ardbeg 10, Laphroaig 10. I don't know. Ardbeg 10 is around 55. Okay. This is thick, meaty. What serves this well? This might be a little young, okay? And yeah, the distillery's been around since 2017. We're not going to get, well, you do the math. We're not going to get even a 10-year whiskey out of them yet, okay? But what is, and I get that mostly because it's just a little bit rough in a fun way, okay? It just has like this, boom, it grabs you by this collar. What is making this so good is that they did not chill filter it, okay? Because now I'm getting like the chill filtering removes a lot of the heart and soul and meat to the whiskey. You can see when I turn this around that it is beating up on the glass. You can see that, right? Okay, and it has a lot of weight to it, and that's what's keeping it. It's giving it more a kind of quasi age. It's mature behind its years. This is very, very good. Again, I don't rate gifts, and I don't. I'm just saying I really enjoyed this, and this is a great way to start peated whiskey. Smoke and brine. This is the third in their Legacy series, and they're telling you a bunch of stuff here. Here's one more thing about whiskey. And this serves in the bourbon world too. You can look at packaging and you can kind of blown away, but I really like this packaging because it kind of seems like it has both modern elements and then kind of a more traditional stuff. Like that little box there, that little label box, text box. That's very traditional looking. Their name is traditional. Their logo is traditional. The descriptions are traditional. Yet, there are some modern things here. If you are reading a bunch of stuff and they're telling you about the story of old Scotland and all this other stuff, okay, save that for the website. If they're telling you information on what is in this bottle, that's great, okay? So here, back here, third release, heavily peated single malt whiskey made with concerto malted barley at blah, 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 fermented with Pinnacle and Anchor yeasts and aged in a mix of American oak, Oloroso, Pedro Jimenez, and ex-bourbon cask. You know, I might have been wrong. Looking where the comma is, American oak Oloroso. So maybe there was no new oak in there. Really cool stuff. Man, thanks, NA, for hitting me to this bottle. I am in your debt. It's going to make me happy. I can almost endure the news tonight. On a second taste, it's really unique here. It's just how much... oh, you know what I didn't do? Let me pour a little more for myself. I'm going to add just a drop of water. Peated whiskey. Okay, very interesting. The first peated whiskey that I had, you know, or of the name ones, was Laphroaig. I had a Laphroaig 10. Still like it, okay? Fortunately, that company has started to put some other things lower in their core range. It's just a drop there of water. I don't know. You know, I should have used those glasses. Okay, some special people gave me those glasses too. I'm going to use those in the next one. All right. The only thing with those glasses is that they're great for drinking, but when we're looking at a whiskey that clear, I like to see the clear stuff. I'll use them next time. Where was I going with that? Yeah, the first one I had was Laphroaig, and it was a lot. Laphroaig has a very kerosene kind of lighter fluid kind of flavor, and you're just kind of like, why would you want to drink that? Because it's an acquired taste. You can acquire it really quickly. I mean, think of the umami flavor that we're talking about, or the umami sense. Michelle? Isn't there, explain umami to me. I'm going to put her on the spot. She might have no idea what I'm talking about. Don't worry about it. Umami, the sense of umami.
The sense of
Sense. Isn't that like, or like in food, isn't that like now they're talking, okay, a taste. But it's like they're talking about that being like, just like sweet and savory and...
encompassing all the, I don't know, taste points of the top.
Okay.
You're sour, you're sweet,
Yeah.
you're salty.
Yeah. That is why the peated whiskey with water, I think I like this straight up. You want to have a little sip of this? This is wild and wacky stuff, but it's good. I don't know. This one might not be your... Am I going to taint it?
Scared.
Hmm?
Okay. That's yours.
That's mine. All right, I'll let NA know. That's good, because I like it a lot. Here's a funny example. So Michelle turns a peated whiskey, okay? I know that when it's a sherry influenced more of the campfire flavor, and there is some more like rich red ripe fruit in there, kind of getting the plum and the plum and raisin and that flavor in there. She loves a peated whiskey. Lagavulin 8. Why, I look back here, I could actually see it. The Lagavulin 8, she likes a whole lot, because there's a lot of fruit influence on that peated whiskey. Ardbeg she doesn't like because I think it has this darker, almost leathery tobacco note. The biggest creosote tobacco note I ever saw was Ardbeg's Wee Beastie. This one is a more refined version of that. I find this very, very interesting. Michelle, on all her Scotch whiskey, kind of likes one that brings that fruit level to it, and whether it's really a really sweeter side, a space side, which is bourbon cask, or something that's been sherried, she doesn't like that like real deep dark note on the end of some whiskeys. So that's why she likes the space sides. That end is more vanilla. Like you get the flavors in the front on a lot of whiskeys, and then the finish can be very similar to the other finishes. You get a little oak, a little cinnamon, a little bit of vanilla. This is not that. This punches at a much lower level. Okay, meaning, like this is this kind of voice. Not to give it any kind of gender kind of idea, just that it's. My voice has just dropped a half an octave just drinking this stuff. Really good stuff. Once you get the taste for peat, you're going to want it in some of your whiskeys, and then what you'll be finding is, oh, I can get a little bit of it. Michelle got me a wonderful bottle of Ardmarken sherry cask release, which I will talk about soon. And I had a little bit of it yesterday, and what was so interesting about it is there's a little peat note in there that I can find. All right, I've gone a long time talking about peat. Okay, just remember the visual. Okay, they take barley that is sprouted and wet. They have to dry it. If you just dry it with an electric heat source, nothing is going to be imparted into that. Okay, if you dried it with say charcoal or mesquite charcoal, it would taste a different way. The long branch, it's got bourbon-esque that Matthew McConaughey used to have his name on from Wild Turkey. They did something with mesquite charcoal that was really interesting, or maybe that was a filtering process, but whatever. You get the idea. If you're smoking meats, okay, if you're like choosy about what you do when you're smoking that, what kind of wood you're using, all that kind of stuff. This is the same concept. It's all they're doing. This Torah, yeah, the pronunciation again. The T, you just start changing it from what I can tell from Gaelic. The T, so you would say Torab, right? You just start saying ch. So Torab, hear that? And it still didn't do it right. Torabhaig, Torab, and then veg. The BH is always a V sound, and then AIG is not egg, but egg. Okay, like leg. Torabhaig. Oh, that one was a good one. All right. This one is a good one. I love it. Let's see. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next. I might actually just do a feature talking a little about peated, but I'm excited about this. If anything, I've got about 15 peated whiskeys here, mostly single malt Scotch, but an American and a couple of blendeds, and it'll be fun to kind of go through October and talk about that as we're lighting campfires and we're lighting our little. Maybe, if you're out on the beach, you're going to light a fire now because it's a little cooler at night, that kind of thing. Or in the backyard, you're going to light hopefully not the house on fire, but you have a little grill pit. Where am I going with this? All right, folks, you get the idea, all right? October, we're going to talk about smoke, a lot of smoke. Wow, this is good. God. All right, more drinking and less eating. I want to finish.